The dishwasher secret, head surgeon laughed, until her data exposed him. Elena, a dishwasher, felt the hot coffee slosh, and then splash onto Dr. Arthur Finch's pristine white scrubs. The head surgeon of St. Jude's Hospital recoiled as if struck, his face contorting into a sneer of pure, aristocratic disdain. "Watch it, girl," he hissed, his voice cutting through the bustling kitchen noise. "Some of us have important work to do, unlike you." Elena's cheeks burned with familiar humiliation, her eyes downcast. He dismissed her as just a dishwasher, but she was listening. Later that morning, in the gleaming hospital cafeteria, Elena moved like a ghost, meticulously wiping down tables. Dr. Arthur Finch, oblivious to her presence, held court with a junior colleague, his laughter echoing. "These kitchen staff, truly their incompetence is astounding," he boomed, gesticulating grandly with a croissant. "But these patient outcomes," he continued, lowering his voice conspiratorially, "are all about presentation. We adjust the narratives to secure grants and funding naturally." Elena's rag stilled for a fraction of a second, her sharp gaze briefly flicking towards him. The casual word adjust struck a subtle, discordant note in her mind. It was a word that felt out of place in the sterile world of medical truth. The quiet cleaner knew more than she let on. The afternoon brought the ebb and flow of visitors to the hospital's main lobby. Elena, pushing her cleaning cart, noticed a nervous family huddled on a bench, their hushed tones carrying on the hushed air. "The prognosis? It's the post-operative myelopathy, right?" the mother whispered to her husband, her voice laced with fear. Maria, Elena's colleague wiping a nearby bench, leaned in. "Poor thing. Spinal cord complications are so random and cruel." Elena paused, her gaze sharp, focused on the family. "Not always, Maria," she said softly, her voice calm but precise. "Sometimes it is iatrogenic." Maria glanced at Elena, a fleeting look of genuine surprise on her face. "Iatrogenic?" she repeated, puzzled by the unfamiliar, medically accurate term coming from a dishwasher. Elena simply nodded, her eyes already back on the anxious family, a deep empathy etched on her features. Her friend warned her to be silent, but some secrets can't stay buried. In the dim staff locker room at the end of their shift, Maria wrung her hands, her face etched with worry. "Elena, you hear too much. We are immigrants, we keep our heads down. Dr. Finch, he is powerful, he could have you deported." Elena slowly pulled off her stained apron, her movements deliberate. Her eyes, however, held a flicker of something Maria hadn't seen before, a quiet, unyielding resolve that belied her humble uniform. "Some things," Elena replied softly, her accent thick but her conviction clear, "are more important than keeping quiet." As Maria turned away, still fretting, Elena subtly picked up a discarded hospital newsletter from the top of a trash bin. Its front page featured a beaming Dr. Finch, championing his latest groundbreaking research. Her grip on the paper was firm, a silent promise. Her cramped apartment, usually a haven of quiet anonymity, now felt like a clandestine research lab. Elena Petrova sat hunched over her small kitchen table, the St. Jude's Hospital newsletter spread before her, illuminated by the harsh glow of a single lamp. Her eyes, usually downcast during her shifts, were sharp, focused, devouring every word of Dr. Finch's latest article on, quote, innovative surgical outcomes. He wrote with a flourish, his prose as pristine as his scrubs. But Elena saw through the polished words. Vague descriptions of atypical postoperative responses and unforeseen systemic reactions grated against her memory. Her mind, a quiet vault of forgotten knowledge, began to stir. She connected the dots, associating the veiled symptoms with specific, rare conditions she had painstakingly studied years ago. A flicker, quick as a synapse firing. The cool, clinical green of a lecture hall in her home country. Professor Andre's insistent voice detailing the nuanced presentation of neurovascular complications. Her past wasn't just a memory. It was a weapon, slowly being sharpened. The next day, Elena found herself in the hushed, cavernous medical section of the public library, a sanctuary of knowledge free from the hospital's hierarchy. Stacks of medical journals rose around her like silent sentinels, as she meticulously cross-referenced Dr. Finch's published data with other reputable studies. His claims of unprecedented success rates in certain complex procedures seemed to shimmer, then warp, under her relentless scrutiny. She discovered articles detailing alternative, less invasive treatments for the very conditions Finch championed with his experimental surgeries, treatments with significantly lower complication rates. This wasn't merely a difference in opinion, it felt like a deliberate omission. A fleeting, bittersweet image flashed in her mind, her own foreign medical degree tucked away in a dusty box, a life's ambition abruptly curtailed by circumstances beyond her control. The pursuit of truth, she realized, was a universal language, one she was fluent in. Night after night, Elena returned to the library, a quiet, determined ghost among the emptying rows of books. Her routine became a silent ritual, dishwashing by day, detective work by night. She diligently compared Dr. Finch's grand pronouncements in public medical conferences with the raw data from other academic institutions. A chilling pattern began to emerge, subtle at first, then glaringly obvious. Minor surgical complications, like postoperative infections or prolonged recovery times, were consistently underreported in his published findings. Simultaneously, she noticed specific, often vulnerable patient demographics appearing with alarming frequency in his experimental trials, without clear, extensive documentation of informed consent. The unethical data collection wasn't a random occurrence, it was a strategy, a calculated distortion designed to inflate success rates and secure lucrative research funding. Back in her apartment, Elena transformed her small wall into a visual map of interconnected cases, a web of deceit painstakingly woven from scattered facts. Printed articles, handwritten notes, and cryptic patient codes were linked by red string, forming a grim tapestry. The unsettling pattern was undeniable now. This wasn't accidental oversight. It was a deliberate scheme to manipulate results, to paint a picture of groundbreaking success where, in reality, there were risks and failures being swept under the rug. The gravity of the situation settled on her like a physical weight. Real people, trusting patients, were being harmed by this deception. Their health and well-being sacrificed for one man's ambition. A cold resolve hardened her troubled expression. She could not, would not, stay silent. One discarded paper revealed a chilling truth. In the sterile, fluorescent-lit break room of St. Jude's Hospital, Elena Petrova moved with the practiced invisibility of her trade, wiping down counters, collecting empty coffee cups. Her hands, calloused from years of manual labor, paused over a stack of discarded papers by a recycling bin. A partially visible patient discharge summary, anonymized but still carrying a distinct coded sequence, caught her eye. It detailed a postoperative complication, a minor infection, yet the code assigned to it didn't align with the public narrative Dr. Finch championed in his research. Elena's mind, sharp and analytical, instantly recalled a similar, subtle anomaly from her late-night research at the public library. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was a pattern. The casualness with which such a critical document was discarded spoke volumes of the hospital's, or more precisely, Dr. Finch's, perceived impunity. She subtly, almost imperceptibly, retrieved the paper, her heart hammering a silent rhythm against her ribs. Risking everything to speak truth to power. Was it worth it? Elena's cramped apartment, usually a refuge, felt suffocating that night. Her research wall, a mosaic of articles, printouts, and her meticulous notes, loomed before her. She traced the lines connecting Dr. Finch's published success rates to the underreported complications, the experimental trials where specific patient demographics seemed overrepresented. The implications were staggering: losing her job, the threat of deportation, risking everything she had built in this new, unforgiving country. Fear, a cold, persistent companion, clawed at her resolve. Then, the faces flashed in her mind. The nervous family in the lobby, the trusting eyes of patients she had seen wheeled into surgery, the countless others who had placed their faith in men like Finch. Her own bitter experience with injustice, the reason she had fled her home, surged through her veins. No, she couldn't stay silent. The injustice was too great. A single tear traced a path down her cheek, but her jaw hardened, her decision solidifying like concrete. The dishwasher decided. The surgeon's secret was about to be revealed. Dawn broke, painting the city skyline in hues of soft gray and hesitant gold. Elena, sleepless but resolute, sat at her small kitchen table. Before her lay her collected data, now meticulously organized into a concise, irrefutable report. Every anomaly, every contradiction, every ethical breach, laid bare. She picked up her worn phone, her fingers steady, as she dialed a number she had found in her research, a local community advocate known for their unwavering support of immigrant workers facing workplace exploitation. Her voice, when she spoke, was low but firm, hinting at the gravity of her call without revealing specifics. "I have something important to discuss," she said. A sense of quiet determination settled over her, replacing the fear that had plagued her nights. The storm was coming, and Elena Petrova, the invisible dishwasher, was ready to face it head-on. The public library's computer lab was Elena Petrova's sanctuary after her shifts, a dimly lit haven where the hum of machines replaced the clatter of dishes. Tonight, like many nights, she was a ghost in the machine, her fingers flying across the worn keyboard with an unexpected agility. She navigated obscure medical databases, cross-referencing Dr. Finch's published research with archived news articles about clinical trials and patient outcomes. What Dr. Finch saw as data points, Elena saw as human stories. Her search wasn't for headlines, but for subtle discrepancies, for the whispers of discontent buried deep within the digital ether. She found them, tucked away in obscure patient forums. Testimonials describing complications eerily similar to those Dr. Finch consistently underreported. These were not random complaints. They were echoes of a pattern, amplified by her advanced search techniques that hinted at a past far beyond dishwashing. What the hospital overlooked, Elena's quiet persistence unearthed. Back in her cramped apartment, Elena transformed her wall into a digital whiteboard, projecting a complex web of information. Lines connected Dr. Finch's glowing research papers to grim patient outcomes, then branched out to the desperate online testimonials she'd unearthed. Each thread was a life, misrepresented or harmed. She identified specific patients whose experiences had been twisted, their pain minimized, their consent perhaps never truly given for experimental trials. The scale of the deception, once a nagging suspicion, now spread before her in horrifying clarity. It wasn't incompetence, it was a chilling, systematic pattern. Dr. Finch's patients, Elena realized with a tightening in her chest, were not individuals to him. They were just numbers in his twisted game, pawns in a grand, unethical chess match for prestige and funding. The moral outrage burned, fueling her resolve to expose the truth. The internet cafe, with its stale coffee smell and flickering screens, offered Elena a cloak of anonymity. Late one night, she posted a cryptic message on a well-guarded medical ethics forum, seeking corroboration without revealing her identity. It was a risky move, but she needed to know if others saw what she saw. Hours later, a reply blinked on her screen, a coded message, subtle yet unmistakable, confirming her deepest suspicions. The anonymous sender pointed to internal dissatisfaction within the hospital, hinting at a quiet resistance to Dr. Finch's methods. Elena's resolve solidified. She was not alone. There were others, silent voices trapped behind fear, waiting for someone brave enough to light a path. This anonymous exchange was a crucial step, a lifeline thrown from the shadows, strengthening her conviction that she was on the right track. In her apartment, Elena meticulously organized her digital findings. Screenshots of incriminating forum posts, archived articles with highlighted discrepancies, detailed timestamps for every piece of data. Each was a bite in her growing dossier. She encrypted the entire collection, backing it up across multiple secure locations. This was her digital breadcrumb trail, a meticulously constructed case designed to leave no room for denial, much like the ironclad evidence David Johnson had once presented. Every click, every file saved was a strategic move in a chess game against a man who believed himself untouchable. Elena's expression was calm, almost serene as she completed her work. She was building an irrefutable argument, a weapon forged from truth and tireless effort. The stakes were impossibly high, but Elena Petrova was prepared to make her move. Her closest friend thought she was crazy. But Elena had proof. The hospital cafeteria hummed with the muted clatter of trays and low conversations, a stark contrast to the storm brewing within Elena. She leaned across the small, worn table, A fraction of her meticulously gathered findings spread subtly beneath her hand. Maria, her eyes wide with fear, pushed her untouched sandwich away. "Elena, you cannot be serious," she whispered, her voice trembling. "This is Dr. Finch. He is a god in this hospital. We are just servers, dishwashers. He could have us deported, or worse, make sure we never work again." The power difference was a gaping chasm, visible in Maria's anxious gaze. She pointed to the framed picture of Dr. Finch on the wall, smiling regally at a gala. "He could crush you, Elena. Please, drop this." Maria's wide, worried eyes pleaded, but Elena's gaze remained calm, steady. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for everyone overlooked. Elena led Maria to a quiet park bench near the hospital, the crisp autumn air a welcome change from the cafeteria's anxieties. "Maria, this is not about me," Elena began, her voice low but unwavering. "It is about the patients. He is manipulating data, misrepresenting outcomes. People are being harmed, their trust betrayed." She spoke of the corruption of medical ethics, a betrayal of the very oath doctors took. Elena's own past, a life of unfulfilled potential and systemic roadblocks in her home country, fueled her resolve. "I have seen injustice before, Maria, and I have learned that silence is a complicity I can no longer afford." Maria listened intently, the fear in her eyes gradually softening, replaced by a flicker of understanding, touched by Elena's earnest conviction, even if skepticism still lingered. One wrong move could cost her everything. Back in her cramped apartment, Elena sat amidst her growing pile of evidence. She picked up a thin folder, her immigration papers. Each document, a fragile thread connecting her to this country, this life. The consequences of her actions loomed large. Losing her job, her home, her ability to stay in the United States, perhaps even her family's hopes abroad. The thought sent a cold shiver through her, a stark reminder of her precarious status. A photo of her parents, smiling from a faded frame, watched over her, but despite the gnawing fear, a deeper resolve hardened her jaw. This fight, she knew, was bigger than her personal comfort, bigger than her own safety. It was about truth. She wasn't alone. A network of justice was forming. Having convinced Maria that silence was no longer an option, Elena arranged a discreet meeting at a local community center. In a small, private room, they sat with Ms. Ramirez, a community advocate known for her fierce dedication to immigrant workers. Elena presented a condensed but no less damning version of her findings. The patterns of data manipulation, the ethical breaches, the harm to patients. Her clear, concise presentation, backed by the initial documents, left Ms. Ramirez visibly impressed. "This is serious, Elena," the advocate said, her expression grave but resolute. "You are not alone. We will help you find legal avenues, and we will ensure your protection." Maria squeezed Elena's arm, a silent offering of support, a testament to their growing alliance. A hush had settled over St. Jude's Hospital, the sterile silence of after hours broken only by the hum of ventilation and the quiet squeak of Elena's cleaning cart. Dr. Finch's office, usually a whirlwind of activity, was now a pristine, almost intimidating space. As Elena meticulously wiped down the polished mahogany desk, her eyes, ever observant, caught sight of something unusual. Tucked carelessly beneath a stack of glossy medical journals was a partially discarded document, its edges peeking out. It wasn't the usual promotional material. The paper felt heavier, the font smaller, denser. Her heart gave a sudden, involuntary lurch. It was an internal review, marked highly sensitive, do not distribute externally. A failed experimental trial. Elena's gaze darted around the empty office, then to the slightly ajar door, before her hand, steady despite the tremor in her chest, reached out. As her eyes scanned the pages, the clinical jargon blurred, replaced by the chilling clarity of unredacted patient names, outcomes drastically different from public reports, and direct links to the very unethical data she had been tracking. This wasn't just a piece of the puzzle. It was the entire smoking gun, unequivocally proving Dr. Finch's knowledge and direct involvement. The air in the opulent office grew thick with tension, each tick of the wall clock amplifying the danger of her discovery. The implications of the report hit Elena with the force of a physical blow. This wasn't merely oversight. It was deliberate manipulation. Her mind raced, cataloging the discrepancies, the falsified success rates, the hidden complications. This was the proof she needed, undeniable and sourced directly from the architect of the deception. With practiced precision, Elena pulled out her worn smartphone, its camera lens a silent witness. She discreetly photographed page after damning page, focusing on the sections detailing patient outcomes and the internal assessments. Then, her breath hitched. Tucked into the margin of one crucial summary was a handwritten note, scribbled in Dr. Finch's unmistakable looping script. Reclassify outcomes. Focus on positive trends for grant application. The narrator's voice hardened. This wasn't negligence, this was intent. A cold, calculated decision to sacrifice patient well-being for personal gain and institutional prestige. The click of Elena's phone camera was barely audible, but in that moment it echoed like a gavel striking a verdict. A triumphant yet cautious expression settled on her face. She had the evidence. The surgeon's carefully constructed facade was about to crumble, not under the weight of abstract accusations, but by the undeniable truth of his own hand. Back in the cramped solitude of her apartment, Elena laid out her meticulously compiled dossier. Digital files glowed on her laptop screen. Printed reports were neatly stacked, and the incriminating photos from Dr. Finch's office were displayed prominently. Each piece of evidence was a testament to her relentless pursuit of justice, a quiet revolution orchestrated from the shadows of an immigrant dishwasher's life. She knew, however, that proof wasn't merely about what you had, but how you presented it. From the bottom of her worn public school backpack, she retrieved a small, digital voice recorder, similar in its unassuming appearance to the one David Johnson had used to dismantle a billionaire's empire. She pressed the tray record button, watched the tiny red light blink to life, then pressed stop, stop. It worked. Her face, illuminated by the soft glow of her lamp, was no longer merely observant. It was calm, resolute, and etched with a quiet, unshakable determination. She had faced fear, doubt, and the immense power of her adversary. But now, armed with irrefutable truth and a strategic mind that had been honed in obscurity, Elena Petrova was ready. The stage was set. The confrontation was inevitable. The dishwasher secret, head surgeon laughed, until her data exposed him. The pristine, bustling kitchen of St. Jude's Hospital hummed with the early morning rush, a stark contrast to the silence Elena Petrova navigated as she pushed her cleaning cart towards the executive wing. Her cleaning uniform, faded but immaculate, felt like a cloak of invisibility. But today she would not be invisible. Ignoring the startled gasp of Dr. Finch's impeccably dressed secretary, Elena pushed open the heavy oak door to his opulent, sterile office. Dr. Arthur Finch, head surgeon of St. Jude's and a man whose ego was as polished as his surgical instruments, looked up from his gleaming mahogany desk, his brow furrowed in annoyance. "What in the blazes are you doing in here?" he demanded, his voice sharp, accustomed to instant obedience. "I'm quite busy, Miss Petrova, isn't it?" "You may leave." Elena stood small but resolute in the vast office, the scent of disinfectant clashing with the subtle aroma of Finch's expensive cologne. Her eyes, usually downcast, met his with an unwavering calm that surprised him. "Dr. Finch," she began, her voice carrying a faint melodic accent, "I need to discuss your research ethics." His secretary, peering in, looked absolutely horrified. He called her a cleaning lady playing doctor. She was about to give him a diagnosis. A single incredulous laugh escaped Dr. Finch's lips, echoing through the sterile space like a predator amused by its foolish prey. "My research ethics," he scoffed, leaning back in his ergonomic leather chair, a sneer twisting his features. "Are you quite all right, Miss Petrova? Perhaps you've been inhaling too many cleaning fumes. A cleaning lady playing doctor? That's rich, even for St. Jude's." He stood, towering over her, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "I could have you terminated for harassment. Deported, even. Do you understand the gravity of that? Or is that too complex for your station?" The air crackled with his contempt, but Elena remained a pillar of composure. Her gaze did not waver. Instead of shrinking, she reached down to her cleaning cart, pulling out a slim, unassuming folder. The contrast between her simple uniform and the quiet dignity with which she held the folder was stark, a visual challenge to his assumed superiority. The dishwasher spoke in a language the head surgeon never expected, medical truth. "Sir," Elena began, her voice steady, devoid of emotion, "my station does not diminish my understanding of medical integrity, nor the Hippocratic oath which you, as a physician, are bound by." She opened the folder, revealing meticulously organized documents, not unlike a seasoned academic presenting a thesis. "I have observed a pattern of anomalous patient outcomes in your published trials for the osteoregun procedure. Specifically, the reported incidence of postoperative neuropathic complications appears statistically improbable given the control group's data." Dr. Finch's arrogant smile faltered, replaced by a deep frown. He blinked, clearly thrown by her precise medical terminology. Furthermore, Elena continued, citing specific sources, "Your methodology for patient stratification, particularly in the allocation of underserved demographics to experimental cohorts, deviates significantly from the Helsinki Declaration's principles on informed consent and equitable distribution of research benefits." Finch leaned forward, his confusion morphing into a dawning, unwelcome realization. The cleaning lady was not playing doctor. She was speaking the language of undeniable, inconvenient truth. Elena's calm demeanor was a stark contrast to the storm brewing in Dr. Finch's eyes. Without a word, she opened the worn folder she carried, revealing a meticulously organized binder. Inside lay printouts of medical journals, screenshots of obscure patient forums, and cross-referenced data tables. He called her evidence fake. Then, she showed him his own words. Elena's finger traced a line on a printed graph. "Your published success rate for the regenerative spinal fusion trials, Dr. Finch, states a 92% efficacy. Yet this internal review from 2 years prior, conveniently never released, shows a 68% rate with significant postoperative complications for patients of specific demographics." Dr. Finch's initial sneer curdled. "Fabricated," he rasped, but his voice lacked the usual conviction, a bead of sweat forming on his temple. His eyes darted nervously across the organized papers, searching for a flaw. "Perhaps this isn't," Elena countered, her voice unwavering. His own handwriting was the proof. The surgeon's lies were exposed. She retrieved her phone from her cleaning cart, its screen illuminating his opulent office. With a deliberate tap, she displayed a series of photographs. The first was a crumpled internal report, partially discarded in his office waste bin just last night. Dr. Finch's eyes widened in horror. Elena zoomed in on a section. A handwritten note scrawled in unmistakable red ink. "Reclassify patient outcomes. Focus on short-term stability for grant renewal. Long-term complications are not our current priority." Dr. Finch turned visibly pale, the color draining from his face as if siphoned away. His bravado crumbled, replaced by a tremor that ran through his usually steady hand. The undeniable proof of his deliberate deception stared him in the face, captured forever. Elena lowered her phone, her gaze unyielding. He didn't just lie. He betrayed the very trust of his patients. "This isn't just about reclassifying data, Dr. Finch," she continued, her voice gaining a quiet power that commanded attention. "This is about defrauding funding bodies, yes, but more critically, it's about misrepresenting risks to vulnerable patients. It's about undermining the very foundation of medical ethics, eroding the trust that patients place in their doctors, in this institution." The weight of her words, backed by irrefutable evidence, pressed down on Dr. Finch. He sat down heavily in his $10,000 leather chair, the imposing hospital view outside his window, a cruel mockery of his collapsing empire. The silence in the room was deafening, filled only with the echoes of his own moral bankruptcy. Dr. Finch stammered, his eyes darting wildly around the room. This is a misunderstanding. I can make this go away. A generous severance, Elena. A substantial sum for your silence." He was desperate, trying to buy back the control he had so carelessly lost. He offered her money. She showed him a recorder. Game over! Elena met his gaze, her expression unyielding. "My intention is not personal gain, Dr. Finch. It is justice." With a deliberate, measured movement, she reached into her cleaning cart and pulled out a small digital voice recorder, placing it on his polished desk. Its tiny red light blinked steadily, a silent, relentless witness. Dr. Finch's blood ran cold. The power dynamic, once so absolute, had irrevocably shifted. Elena was no longer just the dishwasher. She was the architect of his reckoning. His own voice became his judge, jury, and executioner. Elena pressed play. The small device, unassuming in her hand, suddenly commanded the sterile opulence of Dr. Finch's office. His unmistakable voice, clear and chillingly casual, filled the room. "We need to manage this data, Smith. These grant committees don't care about nuance. They care about success rates. If a few minor complications get reclassified, who's really harmed? It's for the greater good of the research, the funding." Dr. Finch stared at the tiny recorder, his face drained of all color. The casual cynicism, the disregard for ethical guidelines, the cold dismissal of patient well-being, it was all there, laid bare by his own words. This wasn't merely a slip of the tongue. It was a blueprint of his casual corruption, a chilling window into the mind of a man who saw human lives as mere data points. Elena's gaze remained unyielding, a silent testament to the irreversible truth now echoing between them. Elena turned off the recorder, the abrupt silence now heavier than the recording itself. Dr. Finch remained frozen, his eyes fixed on the device as if it were a venomous snake. Elena, now fully in command, laid out a meticulously prepared document on his gleaming desk. "My terms are simple, Dr. Finch," she began, her voice calm but firm, the slight accent now adding an authoritative resonance. "A public apology, clearly acknowledging your unethical data collection. A substantial restitution fund for all affected patients, independently administered. And a full, transparent ethics review of your entire department, led by an external committee." Dr. Finch finally moved, his head shaking slowly. "This is impossible," Elena continued, undeterred. "Furthermore, I demand the establishment of a dedicated program within St. Jude's, specifically designed to support and integrate immigrant medical professionals, people whose talent, like mine, has been overlooked and undervalued." He listened, stunned, finally realizing the true depth and breadth of her plan. It wasn't just about him, but about changing an entire system. You can't do this," Dr. Finch stammered, his earlier bravado completely evaporated. "This would destroy my career, my reputation. I'll lose everything." He scrambled for leverage, for an escape. "I'll pay you, Elena, whatever you want. $1 million. 2, just keep this quiet." Elena's gaze sharpened, cutting through his desperation. "My intention is not personal gain, Dr. Finch. It is justice." She reminded him of the widespread harm, the betrayal of trust, the countless lives his ambition had jeopardized. "This information will go public, Dr. Finch. Every news outlet, every medical board, every patient advocacy group will know." He looked out the window at the sprawling city skyline, the towers of his empire now seeming to mock him. His reign, built on a foundation of deceit, was crumbling before his eyes. The choice was stark: utter ruin and public disgrace, or a painful, humiliating path towards accountability and the faint possibility of redemption. Elena watched him intently, the silence in the room a heavy testament to his inevitable decision. He had no choice. With a trembling hand, Dr. Finch reached for the solid gold pen that usually adorned his desk. He took the detailed agreement Elena had prepared, his eyes scanning the clauses that meticulously outlined his downfall and the terms of his forced atonement. His signature, once so bold and confident on medical journals, now appeared shaky and defeated. The pen dropped from his fingers with a soft clatter, a sound that echoed the collapse of his empire. Elena calmly retrieved the signed document, tucking it into her folder. Her expression remained composed, but a flicker of quiet satisfaction touched her eyes. The immediate conflict was resolved, but Elena was a strategist, not just a truth-teller. She then produced a second, even smaller digital recorder, placing it on the desk. "For your information, Dr. Finch," she said, her voice devoid of triumph but brimming with quiet power. "This entire conversation, including you signing this agreement of your own free will, has also been recorded." The pen had dropped, justice was served, and a new era began. Weeks later, the air in the St. Jude's Hospital boardroom hung thick with a tension far heavier than any surgical steel. Dr. Arthur Finch, once a figure of unassailable authority, stood before the stern-faced board members, his shoulders subtly slumped. The arrogance that had defined him was replaced by a quiet, almost somber humility. He announced his resignation, his voice devoid of its usual booming confidence, and detailed the immediate need for a full ethical review of all research. "I acknowledge serious errors in judgment regarding patient data," he stated, the words a bitter pill. The board, aware of the evidence Elena had compiled, accepted his terms with grim, unyielding expressions. The mighty surgeon fell, but not without a plan for redemption. The arrogant surgeon, humbled, finally spoke the truth. A hushed anticipation filled the hospital auditorium as Dr. Arthur Finch, flanked by the hospital CEO, stepped before a phalanx of microphones and flashing cameras. The man who had once dismissed a cleaning lady now publicly confessed to his misdeeds. His prepared statement, read with a newfound gravitas, conveyed his profound apology for the unethical data collection. He then announced the immediate establishment of a restitution fund for all affected patients, a tangible act of contrition. The media buzzed, capturing the seismic shift in St. Jude's, a major story of accountability unfolding before the world. Justice wasn't just words, it was real help for real people. Several weeks after the public apology, a community meeting hall buzzed with a different kind of energy. Elena Petrova, now a quiet observer, sat beside Maria, watching as affected patients received information about the newly established restitution fund. Faces once edged with worry, now softened with relief. Many approached Elena, their eyes filled with tears of gratitude, their hands reaching out to clasp hers. Elena felt a deep, profound sense of peace. This wasn't abstract justice. It was direct, healing impact, a testament to her courage. The quiet dishwasher was now a beacon of change. Her friend couldn't be prouder. In the bustling hospital cafeteria, now visibly more diverse, Maria moved with a new lightness, serving a vibrant mix of staff. Her eyes scanned the room, landing on a familiar figure. Elena, no longer in her cleaning uniform, walked confidently, dressed in professional attire, through the very space where she had once been invisible. Maria paused, a wide, proud smile spreading across her face. Elena caught her gaze, and a silent, knowing acknowledgement passed between them. It was a victory not just for Elena, but for everyone who dared to dream of a better, fairer world. From dishwasher to director, Elena's journey was just beginning. Weeks later, Elena Petrova sat in an office that, while modest in size, radiated a quiet competence. A gleaming nameplate on her mahogany desk proudly read, "Elena Petrova, Director of Community Medical Outreach." Dressed in a sharp, tailored suit, a stark contrast to the stained apron she once wore, she reviewed proposals for the new Immigrant Medical Professionals Integration Program. This role, created at her insistence, was more than a job. It was a testament to the fact that true value would always rise to the surface, regardless of the uniforms people wear or the accents they carry. She felt the weight of responsibility, a solemn promise to every unseen talent yearning for a chance. The disgraced surgeon found his true calling: humble service. Miles away, in a small, bustling community clinic nestled in an underserved neighborhood, Dr. Arthur Finch moved with a new, quiet purpose. Gone was the arrogant swagger, replaced by a humble demeanor as he meticulously examined a child's scraped knee, his touch gentle, his smile genuine. Stripped of his grand hospital office and the prestige he once craved, he found himself rediscovering the very essence of medicine: direct, empathetic patient care. He was still a doctor, but one reshaped by humility, a shadow of his former self, yet now filled with a profound and unfamiliar sense of purpose. The student became the teacher, and the disgraced surgeon found a new mentor. One crisp afternoon, Dr. Finch, having completed his mandated ethics review, found himself in Elena's office. He sat not as her former superior but as a peer, seeking to contribute. "Elena," he began, a genuine respect in his voice, "your program, it has incredible potential. I want to help. My experience, navigating the hospital's political labyrinth, it could be useful." Elena, though a flicker of the past tension remained, recognized the sincerity in his eyes. She nodded, a quiet acceptance. Your insights would be valuable, Dr. Finch. We can achieve more together. A surprising collaboration was born, proving growth was possible on both sides. From one woman's courage, a new era of medical ethics was born. In a brightly lit hospital conference room, Elena stood confidently at the podium presenting the Immigrant Medical Professionals Integration Program to the hospital board and CEO. Her words were clear, passionate, painting a vivid picture of the diverse talent waiting to enrich St. Jude's. In the back, Dr. Finch sat amongst the observers, his presence a silent, powerful endorsement. He nodded approvingly. As the CEO's face broke into a smile, the program met with enthusiastic applause. This wasn't just a proposal. It was a paradigm shift, a testament to Elena's unwavering courage and the hospital's commitment to a more ethical, inclusive future. From one woman's courage, an entire community found hope and healing. A year later, the once struggling community clinic pulsed with life. Immigrant medical professionals, empowered by the St. Jude's integration program, moved with quiet confidence, treating patients with a blend of expertise and compassion. Elena Petrova, now impeccably dressed but still carrying a purposeful air, observed the scene alongside Dr. Arthur Finch, whose face bore the lines of humility rather than arrogance. Maria, no longer just a server but a patient advocate, shared a knowing smile with Elena. The clinic, a vibrant testament to their collective effort, was a beacon of hope, proving that true healing extended far beyond a surgeon's scalpel. They had built something real. The dishwasher who changed a hospital. Her story went global. In her modest yet purposeful new office, Elena sat across from a journalist, the quiet hum of the hospital a backdrop to their conversation. Dr. Finch, now an ethics consultant, sat nearby, his presence a stark reminder of the hospital's transformation. "Ms. Petrova," the reporter began, "how does it feel to have spearheaded such a radical shift at St. Jude's?" Elena paused, her gaze steady. "It feels like justice," she replied, her voice calm. "And a promise kept," Dr. Finch added, his voice softer than it once was. "Elena taught me that leadership isn't just about position. It's about recognizing the overlooked potential in others, and having the courage to confront your own blind spots." Her advice: never let anyone define your worth. Your truth is your power. The journalist turned back to Elena. "What advice would you give to others, especially young women, who face similar injustices or feel invisible?" Elena leaned forward, her eyes radiating a quiet strength that had once been hidden beneath a cleaning uniform. "Never let anyone define your worth based on your uniform or your accent," she stated, her words clear and resonant. "Your origins don't determine your destiny, and always, always have evidence to back up your claims." It was a message that echoed far beyond the walls of her office, a blueprint for reclaiming power. The dishwasher taught them that true wealth isn't money but human potential. What will you build? In the bustling main lobby of St. Jude's, a new wall of merit now proudly displayed the achievements of its diverse staff. Elena, Dr. Finch, and Maria stood before it, a trio forged by conflict and united by purpose. "You know," Dr. Finch said, a genuine smile gracing his lips, "I thought true wealth was what I accumulated. Elena, you taught me it's about the human potential you build." Elena nodded, her gaze sweeping over the faces on the wall. "Real intelligence knows no social class or origin," she added. "Only courage and preparation." It was a profound lesson, learned not from textbooks or boardrooms, but from the quiet strength of an immigrant dishwasher who dared to demand justice.